Hare Krishna. Today we'll be discussing the translation and purport of text 4 from chapter 1 Bhagavad-Gita. Text 4. Here in this army there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhishma and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata and Drupada. Even though Dhriഷ്ടadhyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya, very great power in the military art, there are many others who were the cause of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna and thus he compared the others with them. Text 5 translation. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Sekitana, Kasiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja and Saibhya. Text 6. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Text 7. O best of Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead the military force. Text 8. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Aswadhama, Vikarna and the sons of Somadatta called Bhuriswara, who are always victorious in battle. Duryodhana mentioned the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, Aswadhama is the son of Dronacharya, and Somadatti or Bhuriswara is the son of the king of Bakilaks. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Krupacharya married with the twin sister of Dronacharya. Text 9. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with a different kind of weapons and all are experienced in military science. As far as others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kratavarma, Salva, etc., all determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battlefield of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was of course confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. Text 10. Translation. Our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas carefully protected by Bhima is limited. Herein, an estimation of a comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specially protected by the most experienced general grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by the less experienced general Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious as well as ascertained. Text 11. Now all of you must give full support to grandfather Bhishma, standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army. Duryodhana, after praising the powers of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So, in this usual diplomatic way, he tried to address the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Deva was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was as old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all the sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on the side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes would not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the planks. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of the Bhishma Deva. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjuna's wife Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to strip naked in the presence of all the greatest generals in the assemblies. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that all such affection would now be completely given up by them, as was customary during the gambling performances. Text 12. Bhishma. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly like the sound of a lion, giving Dronacharya joy. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion of him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle because of the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it is his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. Text 13. After that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, drums, and horns were all suddenly sounded. And the drums and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Text 14. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on the great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells as well. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Deva, the conch shells in the hand of Krishna and Arjuna are described as a transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shell indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side because Krishna was on the side of Pandavas. Jayatu Pandu Putram Yasam Pakshe Janardhana. Victory is always with the persons like the sons of Pandu because Lord Krishna is associated with them, and wherever the Lord Krishna is present, the goddess of fortune is always there because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated was donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna, and this indicated that the chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. That ends the text 14. Translation and purport. Now we'll be discussing text 15, translation and purport. Then the Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, and Devadatta and Bhima and the of Herculean task blew his terrific conch shell called Poundaram. Explanation. Lord Krishna is referred to as a Hrishikesha in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalist cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless. or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but He directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. And in this case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here in battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Hrishikesha. The Lord has a different names according to his different activities. For example, his name as a Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name of Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives a pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as a son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yasodanandana because he is awarded his childhood pastimes to Yasoda at Vrindavana. His name is Parthasarathi because he worked as a charioteer of his friend for his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Hrishikesha because he gave a direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures to different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vikrodhara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular type of conch shell blown by the different personality on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. So on the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that the Goddess of Fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle, and that was a message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. That ends the text and translation and explanation of text 15 of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita and the chapter 1. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.